Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Thursday, April 13th, 2017. My name is Rich, and joining me once again this week is Bijan. How you making out?
Doing good, man. What up?
Not much. We are back in audio-only versions, which is very exciting.
Yeah. It's not... Ugh. Nope, have nothing to say. You go ahead.
Yeah, it is nice to be back into our comfort zone. I hope you do manage to check it out. So on YouTube, I'll link it in the show notes for this episode as well. But yeah, stop by, check out the video. It was lots of fun to record, but let's keep it to audio from now on. Thank you for those that did send in videos. Once again, for our episode 100, it was lots of fun.
Yeah, huge shout out to everybody. And I don't know, man. I found it kind of fun. Maybe episode 150. Rich is like, never again. But guys, we got to pressure him just a little bit.
Maybe 200 or 250. We'll see.
See how he keeps adding it on more and more? 150.
We'll start negotiating.
All right. What do we got for today, man?
We do, before I even get into what we're going to cover today, I do have to say quickly, Atomic Climbing Holds, thank you very much. One thing we didn't say in the video is that they are supporting our episode 100 by offering a $100 gift card. And I did put it at the beginning of the audio episode, the audio version of our episode last week. I hope you all enjoyed hearing my daughter help with the intro. But yeah, so if you want to have a chance to win that $100 gift card, stop by our Facebook page and like the post that we've tagged Atomic in promoting the video.
Yeah, huge shout out to Atomic. Thank you for reminding me, Rich. They have been such great supporters of our podcast from day one, guys. They are absolute phenomenal, the best climbing holds imaginable, and I really look forward to working with them, more and more throughout the next few seasons. They are absolutely amazing partners with us.
All right, so on this episode, we're going to be covering Team Ninja Warrior preview because Team Ninja Warrior is coming next week to USA Network.
Woo! Quick! Coming up, like, where did this come from? Oh boy, I'm ready. I am stoked.
Yeah, forget the off-season. There is no off-season anymore. So in order to try to get through Beastmaster, because it feels a little weird to be kind of stretching out Beastmaster as much as we are, given that, it's already out there. We're not waiting week after week. It's been there all along. So we're going to do 2 episodes this week, and probably 2 episodes for the next 2 weeks, I would imagine, to get this to get the rest of them gone.
Yeah, and that's fine with me because I'm loving this show, so I get more of it.
But let's get into Team Ninja Warrior first. We'll do that, and then we'll kind of do our recap of episodes 5 and 6 of Ultimate Beastmaster.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me, man. So first, right off the bat, more than anything else, I have to say I know, as soon as Esquire went down, so to speak, a lot of people were worried about Team Ninja Warrior, and I am so happy that USA picked it up. USA has been promoting the living daylights out of this show, Rich. All of their top shows on USA Network, there's been airing commercials after commercial about Team Ninja Warrior. So I really think this season is going to be a big, big calling out party. I think it's going to get a lot more viewers that didn't even know about Team Ninja Warrior. I'm really excited for everybody involved with this show.
Yeah, even I don't have USA Network, which might end up being problematic, but so I don't see all those commercials, but I see social media is just lit up, like way more than the original Team Ninja Warrior ever thought of being. I mean, it doesn't even cost money to use social media. I don't know why Esquire didn't promote Team Ninja Warrior almost at all.
I mean, it's Esquire. But, yeah, I'm not going to knock them too much. But, Esquire was a very, very small network. And USA is one of the largest networks. Actually, from what I understand, the biggest cable network there is. So when I say Team Ninja Warrior had a boost up, it had a major, major boost up.
Oh, and their lead-in couldn't be better. The crossover, I don't know why. I've never been able to figure it out, but I've noticed since we started this podcast that all of the ninja forums seem to be full of wrestling fans too. I don't know what the
raising my hand right here, man.
I know you are. I know you're one of them.
It's all about personalities, and people really, especially from the wrestling folk, it's either wrestling or MMA or anything in that genre where people attach themselves to personalities and with a competition, and it's the same basis. I mean, it's not fighting necessarily, but with American Ninja Warrior and the sport itself, you get attached to a personality like Jesse Graff or Jeff Britton, the good guy, or whoever you want to maybe Horse Abs is a bad guy, and and you get attached to them and you root for them or you cheer against them, but it's also a competition, so there's a lot of overlap with those.
Yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's an athletic pursuit. So, I mean, it does kind of lend, I guess, itself to the same audiences. But like you said, the personalities are a big part of both. So, yeah, makes some sense. All right, so looking through these teams, there are way too many. I mean, we had the benefit last year of having a lot of kind of, I don't want to call them filler, but we had lots of extra time last year at least. So we were able to kind of go through and look at the teams and try to figure out who everybody was, and which was lots of fun. But we don't have that kind of time this year. We have just this episode to take a look at what teams we have. And no one wants to listen to us list off all the teams, I would imagine, because there's a lot.
No, man. So how do you want to do this? How do you want to go over them?
So I think we'll just list off, like, our picks, I think, would be the way to go. There's a lot of returning teams. I guess some notable mentions would be, even on the teams that are returning, there's some changes, but I guess the teams that haven't changed at all and you should recognize would be Party Time, the ones that won it all, right? Brian Arnold, Jake Murray, Jennifer Tavernier. Think Tank is the same. Noah Kaufman, Matt Wilder, Asha Gretchen. So there are a lot of teams the same, but there are some switches up here and there. So let's do this. Let's talk about our top teams first. Who is your pick to win it all? We're gonna do 3 teams, and I tried to pick two that would probably be favorites, and one that is maybe a little bit of an outsider, but I think has a really good chance.
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot with that one, aren't you?
Yes, top one. I want to hear your top one. Not 3-5 teams. No wishy-washy stuff. Who is going to win it?
You know what? I'm going to change everything up, and I'm going to go with a tried and true, because I have to give Brian Arnold a shout-out again this year because we overlooked them last year. I'm going to have Party Time as 2-time champs. I'm going for it.
I came so close to doing that exact same thing. I really did, because you're right. We totally underestimated how fast Brian Arnold would be, for one. Jake Murray, we know, can move, and Jennifer Tavernier is a beast. Like, you watch her social media, she is crazy strong. So, yeah, that's a really good pick. I really would not be surprised at all to see them do it a second time.
So who's your number one, man?
Man, I was going back and forth between all the different teams, and I got to stick to my guns. I think this is their year. They're going to do it G-Force. I got to go Jesse Graff's team again.
Ooh, G-Force.
Yeah, there was a change up on her team, so this year it is Jesse Graff, Nicholas Coolidge, one of my other favorites, and Jesse LaFleur this year.
How strong. I mean, what a strong, amazing team there is. There's no weakness in that team. Big shout out to them. They're very, very strong.
It's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know of anyone that'll be able to hang with Jesse Graff. I want to see it happen. I want to see some of these showdowns go. I want to see Jesse versus Jesse. I want to see her up against Lebrecht, her up against Megan. We didn't get to see some of the bigger ones last year. Nick Coolidge had some tough pulls last year, man. He held his own, but he had some tough competition going up against, who did he have? Travis Rosen, I think, and Joe Moravsky?
Yeah, but if you remember, I mean, Nicholas Coolidge, this was like Team Ninja Warrior more than anything else is where he really, really stood out from the pack. He did amazing last year in Team Ninja Warrior. He was pretty much like the leader of the team, really taking the charge and really sticking with like some of the top ninjas, and basically cemented himself as one of those people to really watch out for. Before that, he was kind of like just a Tarzan guy, like everybody knew about him, but I think somewhat due to the editing of the show, he wasn't as well known. He wasn't as seen so predominantly. But boy, did he stand out during Team Ninja Warrior. And I seriously think this year he'll also stand out.
All right, so who do you got as your number 2?
So my number 2 was originally my number 1 pick, and I went back and forth between Party Time and this team, and I would not be shocked in the slightest if they absolutely just win this entire show. I am so high up on this team this year, and that is Storm Team. It is Joe Moravsky, Josh Levin, and Alyssa Beard. Wow, what a team there is right there. Now, the reason I'm so high up on this team is because a lot of the other teams are so good in terms of experience and, all around athleticism. But one thing that really stands out with this team is the technique involved and the, I guess, almost obstacle course IQ when it comes to this team. Joel Moravsky is so incredibly technical. Josh Levin, in one season, has proven so much how strong he is and how his approach to the course is very similar to Joe Moravsky's, where they're incredibly technical. And even though the show is about racing and being fast, I have to say, last year, from what we saw with the show, there are a lot of parts where people can be tripped up and everything, making small little mental lapses. And I think this team will be very strong in not making those mistakes. So I'm really high up on the team. And of course, Alyssa Beard, from what we've seen in the regional circuit and on American Ninja Warrior, she's incredibly strong. So I am so high up on this team, and I seriously think they have a big chance of winning the entire show.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. There can be such a case made for so many of these teams.
Yeah, for real.
It's like looking at oh my God, that team's unbeatable. Then you look at the next one and going, well, except maybe that team could do it. Like, how do you compare these teams that are just crazy? I love this. This is like the best TV show ever. I mean, I don't have to see this season to just be so absolutely thrilled to see it again.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually, as you were telling your answer, I'm looking through a list and changing my answer twice. Like, I just cannot make up my mind. It is so hard. But I'm going to change my number 2 pick from what I had at the last second here, because I can't pass up the Ninja Britons. Like, how do you pass up Jeff Britton, Mike Chick, and Jessica Britton? That is just a crazy team.
That is going to be the babyface team of all babyface teams. That is a team it's impossible to root against them, right? I don't care if they're against my number 1 pick. It's like I have to root for them. It's the Ninja Britons. They are so nice. They're so likable. And you just want them to do well. They just exude just overall positivity and everything. I wish them all the best. I'm really high up on that team. And once again, I'm so happy to see both Jeff Britton, but especially Jessica Britton on the show again. I'm really high up on Jessica Britton. I think she has a lot of potential. And it's just it's nice to see somebody from her dynamic where she's like a mother and, has a family and everything, but loves training with her husband, who obviously has done well in this sport, but she's there just showing the love with him, and enjoying this together. Like, everything about them is just so likable.
Well, the thing that solidified it for me is when I looked, because as you were speaking, I was like, oh, wait, who is with Jeff and Jessica? And I looked down and it's Mike Chick. Mike is awesome. Mike is the ninja lawyer. I don't know if you remember him from last season, but he did really well. He made it to Vegas. I see all kinds of stuff with him online. Very strong, very nice. And I really want to support that team. Just full of like the nicest people you can imagine. So, and some of the top athletes on top of that. Like, I really think that they can do extremely well. Like, you're counting on the captain to hold down the team more than anything. We learned that last season. You need the captain to really bring it home, because they can save the whole team if they have to. And you can't get a stronger captain than Jeff. So I'm really banking on him coming through for me.
Great pick, dude. Now, honestly, for my 3rd pick, it went through like 4 different teams, guys. The teams this year are so stacked and so like close together. There's no team that just stands out like, oh, they're just going to destroy everybody. It's been really hard to choose these teams. But overall, it came down to your team, Rich, and G-Force, but I'm not going to pick them because you already picked them, and a team that I think is equally as strong and has a chance to win the entire show. And one point that you made just a minute ago about how it's all about the team captain. So guess what team I'm choosing, my man, as my number 3 pick.
Hey, you got to pick Real Life Beasts, right?
Real Life Beasts! That's right, man. This team is so stacked. We've got Drew Dreshel leading the charge. We have James McGrath, who is so incredibly underrated. When I say James McGrath is like almost at the same level as Drew Dreshel, he is. If you guys look at it, James McGrath's accolades for year after year after year, this guy is destroying this course. He is so good. And the one thing about both these guys is that they are fast. They are really, really fast, and they are really fast at upper body stuff. So if there's a team to give any trouble to people that are maybe rock climbers like Brian Arnold, but also can give like free runners like Flip Rodriguez some trouble, it's going to be the real life beast, because all around they're good. They're adaptive to everything, and they're also somewhat technical. Drew Dreshel is very technical, just like Storm Team Moravsky. So overall, very high up on them. And they have Erica Cook as their anchor. And Erica Cook, in terms of the women, is incredibly strong. In terms of athleticism and everything, she is so poised. And she can hold her own against the top women in the sport. So all around, I'm really high up on this team. And I think they can go all the way.
It's kind of like explaining why you think the Patriots might win the Super Bowl, right? Like how... Like, that team is just ridiculously stacked. Like, how did they not win last year, for one thing? But they're just absolutely phenomenal athletes, all three of them. So that was who I just switched out at the last second from. There's no arguing with that choice. Real Life Beasts were one of the favorites to win last year, and we'll see if they can actually pull it off this year. Mm-hmm. No, great pick. So for my third and final pick... And, I mean, really none of these teams are that much of a stretch to say that they're an outside pick. But I feel like they're a little bit underappreciated maybe. And that is Team Iron Grip. That is Daniel Gill, Nate Burkhalter, and Barclay Stockett. Like, Daniel obviously stands out being, one of the only two to make it to stage 3 last year. So I don't think you have to say much about him. He is absolutely one of the best in the sport. But Nate and Barkley are both crazy good athletes that we've seen over and over again in other competitions, and I feel like both of them will have the potential to come out of nowhere, seemingly nowhere to those that watch the show, but not to people that know the sport. Those are names that they know, and they know they are good, and we'll see what they can do.
Great pick, but unfortunately all these teams are going to fail in the first stage because we just curse them with our picks.
Other than that, other than the fact that
we do not have the best track record when it comes to Team Ninja Warriors. So I apologize in advance to all my teams. I'm the reason you guys lost. Just have some solace in that, probably. But I have to say, everybody, with our picks, there are so many other strong teams. I mean, just looking at it, we have Golden Hearts with Neil Craver, Grant McCartney, and Natalie Duran on a team. They were so good last year, and there's just so many that we haven't even gone over that have such a chance of winning. So really keep an eye out for a lot of these teams, because if you guys remember, last year during Team Ninja Warrior, it wasn't really the front runners that won. It was always the teams that were underrated, like maybe the dark horses that always made it through, and teams like Team TNT ended up destroying it, and Team Ronin and Lab Rats, like those were the teams that were making it to the finals. It wasn't G-Force, it wasn't the Real Life Beasts that were making it to the finals. So keep an eye out. It might be just as last year that a lot of the underdogs are going to be making it to the finals.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would consider the Lab Rats an underdog at this point, but I haven't seen Brian compete in a while, so I wasn't sure where he was at. Obviously, Chris was in top form last season, and Michelle as well, so Brian was my only question mark on the Lab Rats, and I was like, I ended up making me waver enough in the end to not pick them, but... Yeah, good
point. I'm looking at Lab
Rats
right now, and I'm like, that's not really an underdog team. But like Average JoJo's, remember them?
Yeah, they did amazing.
I apologize. I did not give them a chance at all, and boy, was I wrong. They were killing it on the course. So keep an eye out. There's some teams that really can surprise.
Yeah, and this year they swapped out. I think last year they had Caitlin Shuckwit, and this year they've got Kirsty Pratt in for her, which makes that team just that much stronger.
Yeah, what a phenomenal pick. Ooh, for everybody, I've seen her praises so much, but if you have not seen Kirsty Pratt, boy, are you in for a treat. She is so good.
So one more thing we have to discuss, the names. Is there any names that stood out to you? A lot of them are the same. Some were changed, I think, a little bit.
I mean, they're all awful. They're never like they're bad. Like,
oh, come on.
Breakfast Club?
Exactly. And that's exactly why I brought it up. La Breakfast Club. Come on, you got to love that one.
No, it's awful. It's so bad. Flamingo? Really? Like
Flamingo. Yeah, that's kind of bad.
There's some really bad ones. Carson's Fast Cats, like you couldn't. That's what you've got. So, like, there are some good ones though. I actually really like Phoenix Force. That's a really cool team name. I like Iron Grip. That's a good name. Lab Rats is whatever. I think Average JoJo's is lame. But Superhero Squad, that's dope.
That's better.
The Wings is pretty dope, right?
Last year they were the Runaways, I think, and I think Superhero Squad's much better.
Yeah, Runaways is just brutal. Like, part of me dies inside when I hear that. So, so I'm happy about that. But there's some good team names. Like Party Time's a good team name. And I remember last year, I don't think I was so high up on the name Party Time, but it fits. Like some of these fit when you actually see it. Like Golden Hearts is another one where you look at it and you're like, oh, that's terrible. But then they're all in gold and everything, so I guess it kind of fits.
Yeah.
But nothing's gonna make me be like, oh yeah, Mega Crushers is a good team name. Or, like...
The Wings.
Yeah, there's some where I'm just like, really? Really, guys?
Like, okay, I gotta say, that was the biggest disappointment for me. It's the other thing I wanted to mention is Thomas Stilling's team is called The Wings. Really? You can't work in Genie here somewhere? Like, I don't know. I Dream of Genie Pants or something? I don't know what you would call it, but it's got to be better than The Wings.
Yeah, there's a lot better names. I can tell you this, though. Big shout out to the team named The Ballers. That's pretty dope. I'm high up on that team name. Lauren Ball and Paul Casimir. Oh, boy. See, oh, my God. There's so many strong teams, guys. Oh, I hope you're psyched because there are some teams out here where it's like, yeah, if you aren't high up on these teams and these competitors on these teams, you are going to be reintroduced to Paul Casimir real quick and how dope this guy is. With Lauren Ball, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Boy, am I ready for this.
Yeah, there's not going to be a bad episode. Like, you cannot pick 4 teams out of here I don't want to see run.
Oh, man, I'm so psyched. This is going to be amazing.
So it starts next week, and from the math graciously done by, in the last episode of the Final Stage podcast, that's actually going to run into American Ninja Warrior come June. Like, it's actually going to take so long to cover, it's going to actually overlap a bit. So that'll be fun.
No, it's perfect. It's kind of like Walking Dead and that crappy side thing of Fear the Walking Dead. Right. So they really run back and forth with each other. And this is a great 1-2 punch. I mean, you have American Ninja Warrior, then you have some break time, but also mixed in with some specials and everything about the sport. And then you have Team Ninja Warrior. Actually, now I think about it, we had College Ninja Warrior during the break. So we had American Ninja Warrior, then College Ninja Warrior, then Team Ninja Warrior. Then we're going to have American Ninja Warrior again, followed by Celebrity Ninja Warrior. Although I'm pretty sure that's just a special.
That's going to be on... that's a good point. Actually, we didn't mention that. That's going to be actually on Red Nose Day at the end of May. And I believe it's... I should look that up. May 26th. We'll definitely promote it more as it gets closer. But they did announce who's going to be on that and everything else.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you want to... Let's at least go, like, say who's on the cast. Because I think it's pretty obvious who's going to win this show.
You think?
To say the least. Oh, I think it's very obvious who's going to win this.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I know who's been most keen to do it and who's the one they've been promoting the most, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to win it.
He's going to win it. But hang on, let me find. I'm trying to find. What the hell's the list of this thing? Here we go. So we got Ashton Eden. We have Nick Swisher. We have Mina Suvari. Derek Hugh. Nikki Glazer. Natalie Morales, Jeff Dye, Erica Christensen, and all those people are going to lose to the person that's clearly going to win by a wide margin, which is Stephen Amell. Like, there's not a chance in hell. I mean, maybe Derek Hugh has a chance because he's athletic, but none of these people train the way Stephen Amell trains. And this guy is next level. I think it's going to be an easy win for this guy.
Do you know who all these people are? Because I only know who 2 of them are, Stephen Amell and Mina Suvari. I have no idea who the rest of those people are.
I know Derek Hugh. I've heard of Nikki Glazer. Jeff Dye sounds familiar, but
Yeah, so don't judge them. You don't know. You don't know what they can do. So what we're gonna do, I think what we should do.
Jeff Dye is a comedian. Get out of here! Come on, man. Like
Stephen Amell's an actor. Don't give me that. He's not.
Stephen Amell
next level
is an athlete first. Stephen Amell was an actor, then a gymnast, if I remember correctly. like he went into acting second. Okay, Stephen Amell did a lot of different type of athletic things before this, and trains super hardcore. All he does is train, and not just train, but he trains CrossFit and obstacles and different stunt work things. Like when I say Stephen Amell, he's very similar in the vein of Brent Stephenson, people like him. This guy is going to be very comfortable on this course. And the number one thing what we see when it comes to people that are uninitiated with the sport is any amount of experience that you have is going to be tenfold of, a leg up than your competition. And Stephen Amell is going to be way up on these guys.
Yeah, and he defeated Ra's al Ghul, so there's that too. So I mean, he's got like a good, well-rounded experience.
Such a nerd. With that said, it's going to be really fun because the one thing is that I think a lot of people are looking at this thing and be like, oh, why do I care about these celebs, blah, blah, blah. The one thing you guys aren't understanding, or I guess people that criticize it aren't understanding is this is just going to be a special, and it's going to be more of a show, right? And the number one thing we always ask for with these specials or any of these competitions is we want people with personality. And the one thing these celebs are going to give us more than anything else is amazing personalities. All these people are going to be charismatic. There's a reason they're in show business. They're going to be comfortable in front of the camera. They're going to be funny. They're going to be very excited. And I think it's going to be a very fun environment. Sure, we're not going to have the same level of competitors. Like we might have a bunch of people fail on the third obstacle, but it's going to be fun no matter what. And they're going to be coached by all of our favorite ninjas like Kevin Bowl, Casey Catanzaro, Drew Dreshel, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can just go down, but it's like a lot of really fun people are going to be involved with this. So don't look at it as much of a sporting competition, but more of just this fun exhibition.
Yeah, it's only one episode. It's not like they're not taking over the whole season or anything like that. So I haven't seen anybody complain, but I've seen everybody seems really excited about it. There's their own fan bases are really energized to see them on there. I think it's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see it.
Yep.
I wish we could have broken that news before, it kind of blew up on the rest of the news networks. I wish that had happened and, we could have got some promotion from it, but that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, sometimes we all make mistakes.
Painful to look at everybody reporting on this now. Like, why weren't you reporting on this months ago when we told you?
I'm kind of glad they didn't.
Well, yeah, in the end, I guess it was good that they didn't. But
I don't need to be in the doghouse. I don't know about you. All right, moving on.
So that's it for our Team Ninja Warrior preview. We'll actually get to review the show in the coming weeks. Really excited to cover that, and stay tuned for all that coverage. Oh, I just wish we knew what teams were running that each week. That's driving me crazy. If we knew who the 4 teams were running, we could make a prediction of who was going to come out on top, but we don't know. It sucks.
Yeah. I have a feeling I'm going to go on rants on these names. Just looking at it again. Invincibles again?
Yeah.
Shame on you. Shame. Shame.
All right. So getting into Ultimate Beastmaster, we are covering episodes 5 and 6, and I think we're going to have a little bit of a disconnect here by the sounds that we just briefly mentioned before we started the episode. So overall,
don't make me crack my knuckles. You're going to catch these hands. Don't you be talking about my Ultimate Beastmaster, bruh.
Okay, so I'm going to lead off by saying I fell asleep. I honestly didn't care this time. I totally was not drawn in at all. It was I don't know if it's just I'm not in the mood for it today. Trying to watch 2 episodes in a row was too much, maybe. Something about it. It just I didn't care this time. The obstacles weren't changing. It was very repetitive, and I had to say I lost a lot of interest.
You suck.
I got to keep it real.
I blame it. You fell asleep because you're old. I'm going to blame age. How about that?
That's true. That is definitely true.
How could you not like this show?
I love this show.
No.
Don't color it as I don't like the show. It's not.
Okay,
I did enjoy these
episodes. These
I did enjoy these episodes,
man. Oh my! First of all, I fell in love today. I am in love with a certain person. We'll go into it later, but a woman has stolen my heart. And second of all, like, the first episode had such a fun dynamic between, like, 4 competitors going back and forth, competing for that top spot. I mean, I loved both of them. So why? I guess the first episode, why don't you go over, like, what stood out to you and maybe what didn't stand out to you, what you didn't like?
Right off the bat, I mean, I liked the USA competitor, Charles Robinson, the Marine guy. He was soft-spoken, shorter guy. I liked him. He seemed cool. Did a really solid job on the course. Had no complaints. He was a really good jumper. So, considering how short he was, I was a little worried about him on the energy coils, but he had no problems there. I was entertained, I guess, if you want to call it that, when the professional arm wrestler guy clocked himself jumping off of the mag wall. I thought that was like maybe kind of jump a bit, and I was engaged at that point. And Gina from Mexico, her storyline, being a single mom from an abusive relationship, and going to give her weddings to her parents and all this, but she ended up getting knocked out in the first round. But I thought her story was interesting, and I was hoping she would go further. I don't know.
Interesting. That was the one thing that I actually had criticism with, is that was the first time on this show where I felt like they were going a little too much in the sappy area, where they went on her story a little too long, and throughout her entire run, everybody was just more... it felt like they were like soaking up her story way too much, where everything was focused on her story. It's hard for me to describe, but really... it was too much.
It was one of the few times we've seen where it was kind of an inspirational story. But as I thought that same thing, I thought because they must have went on about it a little bit more than they normally do, because I noted the same thing at that time. I thought, well, that's more than they usually do. And then I thought, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I don't think they've picked anyone to run this course that isn't an athlete first, I guess. So, I mean, she's definitely a strong athlete. She went on the energy coil. It's not like she fell on the first obstacle or anything like that. She did well. She just didn't do quite as well as she needed to move on.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Everybody is still an athlete, and she definitely was too. So it wasn't like she just failed on the first obstacle. But I feel like the commentators could have at least focused more on her run and less on her story.
Fair enough. I did have to note, so the German competitor, Philipp Hell, who was really one of the strongest competitors in the episode, he jumped off after getting the energy booster, which we've seen before, and I kind of complained about. But I like that they took the time this time to explain it a little better. Kind of gave him a chance to explain why. And he said, like, my hand hurts, and I don't want to hurt it anymore. I'm going to save it for the next stage, or the next levels. So that made some sense, at least. I was like, all right, so he's hurt. He doesn't want to risk. He doesn't think he has what it takes to kind of get back. And so he's like, you know what? I'm just going to call it quits for here and save myself for later on, which is what you said. But to have it come directly from the horse's mouth is pretty good.
Yeah, and that story, or that point of his hand hurting, played predominant throughout the episode. It seems like he was battling an injury right there. I hope he's okay. But I am happy that they brought back the chain for this episode, because I feel like the rope is a little almost not unfair, but it like cancels out way too much of the field too early in the competition. Do you agree with that?
Kinda. It was a little jarring for me to have it switch back to the chain again and then back to the rope for the episode 6. So it's like, obviously they're showing these episodes out of sequence, which always bugs me a bit. But yeah, I kind of agree. The rope is just like like what we normally call a ninja killer, right? It's a beast killer. It takes out like half the field. It's crazy that just changing it from a chain to a rope does so much, but it's such a thick rope, and they have such a hard time grabbing it.
Oh yeah, I gotta say though, one competitor that stood out to me is Gundam Kim. It's like, it seems like in the later half of the show, they always have a featured competitor at the very beginning that they kind of pimp out or like pump up, right? And this Gundam Kim guy, he was just brimming with charisma, and I wanted him to do really well, but he didn't really make it very far. But boy, was this guy fun. And you can see Team South Korea, like the commentators again, just losing their minds. And I love these guys so much, those commentators. So every time I watch this show, those commentators just make me smile.
Yeah, they're pretty great. I found like they really shined on the first episode, but haven't as much since. I don't know if they...
It's because of competitors, man. I mean, you're not going to get to have as much airtime as a commentator if your competitors aren't doing well. I mean, it just makes sense.
Somewhat. Some of them don't let them ignore them. They wander in each other's booths and everything else. As one of the only things I'll say good about these episodes was that the hosts definitely did their best to keep it entertaining. They were wandering around, harassing each other, and
oh, they're great.
Yeah, trash talking. That was pretty good. That was consistently good.
Yeah, I feel bad for Team Mexico's commentators. I mean, in terms of like all of the commentary teams, it seems like Team Mexico and Japan are the two that really get the shaft on the show.
A little bit. But yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about both of these episodes. I mean, I do have a few notes along the way, but it's just, I don't know. I don't have anything. Most of it's from the beginning of this episode where it was holding my interest, and then it just lost me. Yeah, it's kind of cool that one of the guys got the second point thruster on level 2, which I don't think we've seen anybody do. He managed to climb the chains up and hit that point thruster, which I'm pretty sure that was the first time we've seen it. So that was kind of nice, but I didn't really care all that much.
Well, I will say the first episode that we saw today has my, at this point, pick to win the entire show. I am super high up, everybody, on this competitor named Roberto Perez. He's a guy that clearly trains on obstacles. He does like rock climbing. He's incredibly fit and agile. He's one of the skinnier competitors that actually fits really well with this show. You need agility more than strength. And this guy's approach to these courses is very similar to like Joe Moravsky or anything like that, where he's very versatile and uses his intelligence and understanding of obstacles and technique involved with them, rather than just athletic prowess and just trying to muscle through them. This guy was very, very smart in his approach to everything on this show. I am super high up on this guy. He's from Team Mexico, and I'm super happy that Team Mexico finally has somebody on the finishers board. And I think this is the guy to beat. I don't see anybody beating him.
No. At this point, he's a pretty clear standout as far as that goes. He beat stage 1. He's the only one to do that in this episode. Then he goes on to darn near do stage 2.
He got pretty far in stage 2, but the thing that stood out to me was stage 3, man. I mean, this guy was going further and further and further in stage 3. And then he was very, very smart. He made it to the point where he's number 1 in the rankings for stage 3. And he gets on the bed thing. But instead of just trying to be like all macho and complete the entire course, he did the little cutout thing, and he ended it right there, and he made an amazing, astute point, which really made me just really appreciate him more, where he's like, I made it to stage 4, I have nothing else to prove, really, and I want to save my energy, especially my upper body strength, for stage 4. And I found that just an amazing observation that I feel like not enough competitors probably would focus on, and I really appreciated that from him. Not just that, I mean, this is the only guy other than from episode 1 where he made it to the very top, or the final portion of stage 4. So overall, I mean, this guy is perfect for this show and has shown no weaknesses yet.
Yeah, I don't even think that does it justice to say that in stage 4 he made it to the top. He made it to the top twice. Like, he made it to the top, slipped off, and then climbed back up again because it dropped him back down some to reclimb. So he was climbing against actually Charles Robinson from USA, who did respectably.
He did well, yeah.
But he would have done fairly well against most of the other people that we've seen, but not this guy. This guy is a gymnastics and climbing background. He's just next level. There was even the ice climber that we saw did so well, didn't come nearly as good as this guy. He was like reaching the top of the thing with 2 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, he did great. We had a little bit of a scare, honestly, when you say he slipped off the final part.
Yes.
He slipped off, and he slipped and fell like almost like a third of the way down to the middle portion of it, where if they drop you that much, and luckily he fell in between the two beams, but he could have really hit his like head or anything on one of those side beams, and that was really scary. I didn't realize they would drop him that far, and I really hope they correct that next time, because that is a big liability, and that was kind of scary.
Yeah, that kind of woke me up a bit. That was like, whoa, geez, don't, like, why would you let him drop that far? That's a little bit much, because he got turned around and stuff. It didn't look good.
They got really lucky by the fact that he dropped right in between the beams. Could have easily dropped right onto one of those things.
All right. Anything else to say about that episode?
Nope. Let's go into the love of my life, which is the lady on episode Mrs. Zigzag. Let's get into that.
So this one was called Beauty and the Beast. Not so hard to see that there was going to be a lady doing well through most of it. I actually thought she was going to make it to the final. I thought that was like a spoiler right off the bat.
Oh my God. I was hoping so bad.
She's a female parkour athlete from Germany. Very, very good. Very, very short too. Like
5 foot.
Casey Catanzaro height.
Yeah. Which honestly made it even more amazing. Like this girl is, and I have to say girl because she's 18, but she's so phenomenal. She was absolutely perfect. Her demeanor and approach to the chorus, where she is just like, oh, we'll see how well I do. She's like, I am confident that I can be the first lady to get to stage 3 and maybe to stage 4. I am confident in my skills. I'm really excited to be on this. Everything that I've been training is perfect for this sport, and I'm so excited to be here. She was so excited. She made it really fun, and she was incredibly charismatic. Let me get her name because she deserves it.
I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's Silke Solfrank.
Silke Solfrank, yeah. So good. So what did you... do you want to just go round by round, or you just want to talk about competitors like we did the first one? Let's just talk about competitors, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the competitors. Anything of note. We don't have to go through individual results on the stages. What were the highlights of the episode for you?
The entire highlight was Silke Solfrank. This is Zigzag, honestly. So the entire competition, she was doing well, and she was holding her own with the men. She was in the middle of the pack during stage 1. She was honestly in like 2/3 of the way with stage 2, but she was never near at the very bottom, which was really impressive. And she finally makes it to stage 3, the first woman to make it to stage 3, and it was really impressive, her showing on this show. And what she does is she has a chance to make it to stage 4. And the thing is that the guy that made it to stage 4 at this point is the South Korean bodybuilder who's like well over 200 pounds. And I'm like, that guy's going to get destroyed by her if we're going towards a rock climbing competition. I mean, there's just no chance in heck that this guy's going to keep up with a girl that's barely 100 pounds. So I was really excited because I thought we'd finally see a girl in the finals. And obviously that's just assuming stuff, but I was pretty confident in that observation just by how the rock climbing portion is. So all she had to do was make it to stage 4, and she did so phenomenal. She made the escalator or whatever that treadmill thingy is that everybody feels at. She made it. She keeps going and does well. And what was really interesting, another standout, is that finally in stage 3, we have 3 competitors, Rich, that go for finishing it just off without the 40-point whatever it is. And nobody can do it. I mean, everybody was assuming this would be easy, but apparently from the looks of it, it's just as hard as all the others. And honestly, I think the bed frame might be easier than this pole grasper thingy.
What the heck? Like, I was expecting, it was like, oh, we're going to get to see it finally. And then we see it again. And then we see it again. Like, how do we go from not seeing it all up until episode 6? And suddenly we see it, 3 different people try it in the same one. And especially when some of them were kind of dumb to go that way, honestly. They really should have went the other. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel for her because this really wasn't the route to go for her in particular because she was so small.
Yeah.
And just like we saw with Casey Catanzaro on American Ninja Warrior, that one amazing historic run where she had to jump from pole to pole. I mean, this poor girl couldn't even reach the pole where all the other guys were just grabbing it, no problem. And she basically had to almost swing over to it with poles that basically aren't even made to swing. And everything was stacked against her at that point. I really felt for her. I think she knew at that point. It was like, oh, I made a mistake. And God, she was so close, man. I think if she just tried for those beds instead with the optional, taking the extra 40 points, I think we would have seen her in the finals. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But that's everything about these shows, lapse in judgments and small little mistakes. But it was crazy to see a woman get so close. And I mean so close.
I agree with
and
you.
then,
I was thinking,
just not make it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think her chances were really good in the final, too, because of her build would have been ideal for that final climb. Now, she is a parkour athlete, not necessarily a climber, but I still think she could have overcome that probably. By the looks of it, she had a lot of upper body strength. We saw her demonstrate it more than once on there.
Yeah, and it's the middle portion. I mean, everybody can really get past the rock climbing, like with the holds and everything portion of the final stage, right? It might be harder for some others, but most people can at least get to that point. It's really the finger slots that give a lot of people grief. And when you're comparing a guy that's over 200 pounds, that's a bodybuilder, to a girl that's barely 100 pounds, I mean, she doesn't even need all of that upper body strength. Just, she's going to have a much easier time doing that portion of the course than him. So one thing I also want to talk about is on this episode, they had that rope again. And I fully understand the dynamics of the rope. And actually, I don't hate the rope. The problem is the placement of where that rope is. It's really the second obstacle on the first stage. So we really don't get to see much of the field of athletes get very far because they have to get to this rope, which knocks out almost the entire field of competition. And at that point, it's just narrowed down towards who can get to that obstacle the fastest. So I think in this episode, I mean, literally, I think over half the field all was knocked out by that rope, and anybody getting through to the second round were getting there on the merits of how quickly they got there. Because it's kind of like the first stage, you have some obstacles that are at like level 2 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, right? And then you have this rope thingy where you have to climb onto, which is like at 9, which wipes out the entire field. And then the rest of that stage is like at 4. So it's like, what are you guys doing? And it's just tough to see because a lot of the competitors, I feel like, had much more to show that were knocked out.
Yeah, and in addition to it being, kind of disproportionately difficult, it's actively harmful to them and kind of messes up the rest of the run, like the other levels for them, because they end up shredding their hands in the worst ways. Like some of the injuries look terrible.
That was a very good point, man.
It's really not good for the athletes, I think. I mean, like, I don't know what you do to prevent it. I'm going to stick with the chain, I guess, but the rope is like more damaging than I think I've seen any other obstacle in any of the obstacle shows we watched.
Great point. I mean, every competitor that you see do the rope, what's the first thing you see once they fall into the water, even if they don't fall into the water and make it? They just look at their hands in absolute misery because they just know they just shredded out all the skin from their palms, and that plays a big major component in later stages. I mean, the competitors later on in this show, they couldn't get very far in stage 2 because they're hanging chains, and at that point, your hand is completely shredded. And I'm sure that played also a major component in stage 3, where all these competitors are trying to get to, like, climbing down all these different cylindrical poles and everything, and they just don't have the grip strength anymore because when your hand is shredded like that, any pressure you put on it is excruciating. So it just makes everything tenfold more difficulty and, as you said, harmful. So I feel like there's much better ways of implementing that rope. And I understand, like with all obstacle course shows, a tough obstacle is good, but I feel like this is hard for the wrong reasons. It's not really about technique, and it's kind of really harmful towards the competitors.
Yeah, if it was technique, I mean, really the chain demonstrates the technique just as well as the rope would. So I just don't think it's a good obstacle. I'm hoping it's changed for season 2. We'll see.
I don't think we're going to see it in season 2. I think the creators would be crazy to be like, yeah, let's have this back and just narrow out half the field. I mean, I seriously doubt anybody associated with the show is super happy that half the field is wiped out by like one of the first obstacles on the first stage. I don't think that makes it fun for anybody.
In the end, so the final stage, if you want to jump ahead here, was Hyunho Kim from South Korea versus Santiago Lopez from Mexico.
I like both of these guys, man. So Santiago, this dude has got like a really neat story. He's got a cool look with like this giant mustache and everything, and he's like you know, he has a vineyard with his family, but he also works on everything. Like a nice story. But then I forget his name. What's the guys from South Korea? You just said it. I'm sorry.
Hyun-ho Kim?
Hyun-ho Kim. So this guy, he's like this big, jacked, like, bodybuilder guy. And you got, like, all of these, like, videos of him, like, competing maybe for, like, I believe it was a South Korean, like, Olympic team or whatever. Like, this dude is just jacked, and he does not look like the prototypical guy you see on obstacle course shows at all. Especially for a competition like this that's really based on agility. And this guy, I at first I was like, whatever about this guy. First of all, I thought he was just done for in Stage 4. I'm like, this sucks because this guy's gonna get killed in Stage 4. But boy, you can't not like this guy because this giant guy kills it throughout the entire competition, makes it in first place at Stage 3, and then wins the entire thing. And he gets like pretty well up there in Stage 4. He made it about halfway, and credit to that guy. I mean, for his body build, I mean, props to him. That I'm sure that was not easy.
It was a close match. It really came down to the wire more than we've seen with most. It was really came down to just 20 points between them, basically one buzzer. They were neck and neck right to the end.
Yep. But for somebody that I completely just discredited and I was like, there's not a chance in heck that he can make it, he did it. And I have to give all the credit to him. By the way, more chances for us to see Team South Korea.
Yeah, that's one good thing.
I love them. I love them so much. Their celebration was amazing. Everything about it, wonderful.
I have to say, I've been really loving Team Brazil. I have to
Brazil's
say.
a great too. Yeah, both guys. I mean, Anderson Silva I was worried about because I'm like, you know, he's a fun guy in MMA, but whatever. But he was so fun, and I forget the other name, the other guy from Team Brazil, but he is so great. Like in one of these episodes, he's like taking off his shirt. He's so angry, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And then they come and like just start harassing Team Germany, being like, "Oh, our guy's number one," and then they look at it.
He's 1 second
and Team
behind
Germany's number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like their dynamic with just everybody is just so fun. I love those guys. Great point, man. I feel like at this, like, does Team Japan even exist at this point?
Well, that's the thing.
I feel like I see them at a blink of an eye, but then they're vanished. It's like,
well, their competitors aren't doing so well, but on top of that, their announcers aren't really as dynamic as the rest of them have been.
They're not.
They're harassing each other and getting quite as involved and in your face, like, Terry Crews coming over and trash talking them and starts chanting USA in the middle of their booth. As much as the USA thing did get overplayed, that time it was kind of funny because he was kind of rubbing it in a bit.
Oh, it was great. It's like, oh, guys, you thought this one competitor of yours was going to do well, huh? Where is he now? They just start screaming USA. Oh, I loved it. This show's so fun. I love it.
So that is it for this week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach me at rich@ninjapodcast.com or as @ninjapodcast on Instagram and Twitter. And Bijan, how can they reach you?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is BIJAN 151.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a fantastic week.
Peace, y'all.
I'm Noah Kaufman, the Ninja Doc,
And I'm Ian Dory.
from the Wolfpack Ninjas on American Ninja Warrior. We want to tell you a little bit about a great event that we're putting on to benefit the Children's Hospital of Colorado.
We have a full-scale Ninja Warrior course for professional ninjas, but also for kids.
We've got Megan Martin, Jesse Graff, Joe Moravsky, Jeff Britton, just to name a few. Come out April 29th and 30th to the Wolfpack Ninja Tour.
with more than $30,000 cash and prizes.
Check us out at wolfpackninjatour.com.
All right, guys, just another thing. I want to give another major shout out to Atomic Climbing Holds. They've been with us from day one, and I want to give a major thanks and shout out to them for giving you all, our listeners, an opportunity to win a $100 gift card from them. All you have to do is go to our page, like our post for our 100th episode. Love you guys. Peace.